There were controlled explosions, a light show, smoke and mirrors, but it wasn't a concert and definitely not a Coldplay one at that.
An East Texas Discovery Center shows kids the practical application and fun of science. KLTV7's Bob Hallmark takes us there.
Did you have fun?
Yes.
At Longview's World of Wonder, or WOW Center, parents and children experience the Texas A&M Chemistry Roadshow, hosted by Professor Jim Pennington.
The hope is that I can feel like, oh, science is understandable, I can learn this, and it's exciting, and it's worth learning.
The hour-and-a-half presentation demonstrated such things as chemical reactions among simple compounds, light refracting in air and water, controlled explosions, and color-changing potions.
But nobody's going to go do the hard work of learning science unless they see why it's exciting and why it's interesting.
My oldest, Nixon, the 7-year-old, he loves science. Yeah, he seems very interested, and he asked me throughout the whole show, can we get this, can we do that, the experiments.
The balloons that exploded. I think I want to do science now. I like the part where the elephant toothpaste just kept going in circles.
The aim of the Chemistry Roadshow is not just to educate, but to possibly find the next generation of scientists. Pennington does 70 to 80 shows per year.
So it bends the light the same way, so as the light's passing through, it doesn't distinguish between passing through the oil or passing through the glass.
In a surprise, one of his former students came for the show.
Dr. Pennington was my organic chemistry professor going on 20 years ago at Texas A&M.
It was great. It was amazing. I think my favorite part was the fire.
Bob Hallmark, KLTV 7 News.
And the road show heads to the Dallas area next.
And speaking of Dallas,